Welcome to the post game from Carolina's 66-69 defeat to Florida State and perhaps 3 additional opponents in the semifinals of the ACC tournament 2021 edition. Hoping that Blake from Keeping It Heel will join me. Missing Dan, who traveled and doesn't have full internet capability or all of his devices that he needs. So definitely missing his energy, of course, in hosting this, but happy to have the opportunity to talk about it. I thought it was a good performance by our young team. For me, I saw Garrison Brooks in the first half as like the main steadying force for a team that was kind of flirting with the self-destruct mode. But we hung tough. They hit a killer 3 right at the end of the first half. And but we came out with that same fight that we did against them in the second half at Chapel Hill. Yeah, the turnover bug bit us and too many missed free throws. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but we were in the 50s, like 53% from the free throw line, and that's tough when you lose by 3. So got to agree with you there. Daniel DeWitt, thanks for the comment. Let's see. I thought the young guards played a lot better in the second half. We definitely saw some mistakes defensively. I think that we hung tight, and that's where Florida State made things really difficult. We can say what we will about a few missed calls, and there were definitely a few that I think were clearly blown. Trying not to harp on that, but it's going to circle around in my mind for at least the next 24 hours probably. But Florida State makes it really difficult on their opponents and just getting the ball up the court. I think we had 2 turnovers where we were just trying to get the ball past midcourt, and they converted to fast break points both times. So those are easy buckets for them. Again, a 3-point game, anything could turn it the other direction. They deny getting our ability to get the ball to the guy we want to get it to, namely Caleb Love, bringing it up the court. And of course, RJ played well in the second half and was able to, move the ball up the court. I have one little nit to pick. RJ, such a fighter, love him. But when he initiates the offense, there's a lot of dribbling. I think we need more movement of the ball going around. But he's a competitor, and he's willing to go into the lane and drive, and that's what you need late in games too. So unfortunate, a key play when he saw the lane open up late in the game. Garrison Brooks holding off a defender. RJ goes up for a layup. It doesn't convert. He's expecting contact perhaps, and we can't quite get that offensive rebound. We weren't as fierce on the offensive glass tonight as we've shown. Again, credit to Florida State. They got some long bodies, some tall players, and they did a good job boxing us out. And there again, at the end of the game in those last 3 minutes when I think we held a 3-point lead and then ultimately lost by 3, so they essentially outscored us by 6. They made it incredibly hard for us to score. That's where I find that we got to get the ball into our bigs, into our advantage, and get them in a place where they can score. I think we had an inbounds. There might have been a short shot clock, and I had Dayron taking a tough contested jumper from an odd angle there, close to the 3-point line. Yep, Dan's contributing. Hate to talk refs, but they were not good tonight. Yeah, definitely missed goaltend. Clearly missed goaltend. I couldn't believe it. I was screaming, and my wife had to tell me to send the refs positive vibes. And in the second half, I was watching the game alone, and I was taking deep breaths, because otherwise I was about to scream and throw some stuff. Yeah, there was that one play where we trapped them. And that was a big play, too. We were trapping, I don't know what their player's name is, the white guy with the bushy dark hair. And he traveled twice, dipped his shoulder, leaned in, offensive foul, and they didn't call it. And they ended up, beating our press and getting a layup. That was rough to watch. And then also late in the game, when Koprivica, who was their best player on the night, probably led off scores, I'd imagine, totally just shouldered into Garrison, knocking him back. If Garrison has the presence of mind to go down on that play, we probably get the offensive. We should get the offensive foul call. Probably don't tonight, but should. But Garrison's a strong guy, so he took that, and then ultimately had a foul called on us. There's another trap where we had a foul called on Leaky Black. Originally, they put it on Garrison and then switched it over to Leaky, but there was no foul. They traveled. He also tried to push out with an offensive. I mean, it's tough. Yeah, it's hard not to go down that road. Definitely missed travels, missed out of bounds. Yeah, I'm with you, Dan. We could go for the whole podcast on the officiating. But yeah, I agree. Great effort and comeback. Great momentum heading into the NCAA tournament. I think that this is definitely something to hang your hat on for these guys. That they're like, hey, we can play with anybody. This is one of the best teams in the country. People are saying they could be a Final Four team, and we were right there. So, and that was despite playing 5 against 8 as Grant contributed. Thanks, Grant. Yeah, rest up, stay safe, and get to Indy to make some noise. I agree. I agree with you, Dan. And I have loved this team. I'm loving them more and more with every game. I know that there were some growing pains along the way, and it's been talked about. But the lack of a off season, so to speak, where they're playing against other Carolina greats in Chapel Hill, the lack of a preseason where they're going up against some cupcakes in the Smith Center to get things in control and figure out the system, particularly with the amount of young players we have. It was just learning on the fly. And I know that goes across the board to every team, but I think it was a big deal for this team who puts in a ton of minutes for the freshman class, plus Anthony Harris, who essentially is like a freshman, having only played a few games last year. I thought Anthony Harris brings some great things. We talked about him 2 nights ago, what he brought late in the game against Notre Dame, and he brings that fire and that intensity and that want and that drive. And we saw it out of Caleb. I love seeing his passion, his energy when we were making plays, and he hit some big threes. And this one, missed some tough looks. And, there was a moment where there was an atrocious turnover or two in the first half, but overall, got to give credit to our guards who really grew up, I think, in this tournament. Grant saying we do have positive momentum going into the NCAAs. We should all be optimistic as Tar Heel Nation. I agree. I'm feeling good about this team. I wanted that win. I wanted it, of course. But I realized that it's not the end of the season, thankfully. So it'll be Florida State playing against Georgia Tech, who got through as a result of UVA essentially forfeiting the game due to COVID. Interesting as to the outcome of UVA's season at this point. It's in jeopardy with them having to go through protocols. So to be determined. That was an interesting one. Yet only 9 assists in Florida makes everything isolation, not a great style for our 2 big lineup. Yeah. And again, in crunch time, that's, say what you will about the officiating, but in crunch time, when we needed a basket, we couldn't come up with one. And credit to their defense, but also we got to get in sets that get the ball down low for this team. If we end up kicking it back out, that's okay. Then we're going to have a better look. But the dribbling around the perimeter and then a contested shot late in the shot clock from outside the paint is not what we want. And that's tough for us to go out. But credit to their defense again. I don't want to circle back too much to that, but they were tough. So we got Blake joining us here. Let him take a moment to get set up there. Welcome, Blake. I don't know if I need to do anything to you. Okay, there we go.
There you go. What's going on?
Not much. Oh, I realized that maybe my AirPods weren't working, so I apologize. All right. So basically, Blake, we got some good comments over there from Dan and Grant. I've talked about defense from Florida State making it hard on us. I've talked about officiating, making it difficult on us. I talked about, Dan mentioned lack of assists. My main point is that when we needed baskets late in the game, we couldn't get it into our bigs in a position where they could score. So a little bit of an offensive breakdown, but I think that's something that they can practice and work on. I'll go ahead and let you chime in with your thoughts and takeaways.
For sure. The free throw shooting was obviously the thing that sticks out, in terms of what the Tar Heels can actually handle themselves. You just can't miss 11 free throws at all. Certainly not in a game where you shoot as poorly as you do. You can't shoot 33% from 3-point range. you can't shoot below 35% for the game and then miss 11 out of 25 free throws. It's just bad. You can't win many games like that. Especially in a game where you lose by single digits on the last couple of possessions. That's just, you're not going to win those games. The offense,
we were right there.
Yeah, right there. And free throws, Day'Ron Sharp misses too. Now I think the game is already probably lost at that point, but just kind of a snapshot of it. He misses 2 free throws right there at the end of the game. Then you talk about the offensive sets or lack of offensive sets there toward the end of the game. The last few possessions were just, I agree. Florida State was making it tough to get the ball inside. They were inside passing lanes and they were all over everybody. But just dribbling the ball around and then having a 5'11" guy go in and try to toss the ball up was just terrible. I'd rather throw up a 3 from 35 feet. There's a better shot that's going to work. Because those little driving lay-ins weren't working all game for Caleb Love or RJ Davis. So, in terms of things that the Tar Heels can control, the free throw shooting, was terrible and has to get better. The offensive play calling, which I think in that situation, Roy Williams should have called a timeout. And he should have set something up or at least tried to set something up instead of just letting them run offense or try to run offense, which just turned into dribbling the ball. But I rarely go to blaming the refs, but this game was really poorly officiated. It was very, very one-sided. So many missed calls. The goaltending call was egregious. The missed call where a guy's dribbling on the baseline and then puts in a reverse lay-in. I know it's rarely called, but the travel at the end of the game by Walker when he takes about 4 steps and then still changes a pivot foot.
At least
was as bad of a missed call as I've seen. Like I said, I know that call is often not called, but that's usually maybe 2 steps. I mean, he walked all over the place.
If you take 2 steps and a hop, I'm not going to complain with them not calling that. But when you take 4 steps and a hop,
it was bad.
Did that particular play cost us the game? No, but still.
No.
And for me, you're talking about that one, which was big. But for me, almost the most egregious of the night, and you could choose, was the trap that Leakey and Garrison put on. I'm not sure which of their guards
should have been an offensive foul.
It travel and an offensive foul.
Yeah,
and somehow it's a foul on us.
Yeah, that one was horrible too. And there was another one earlier in the game where Garrison Brooks, if you remember, Garrison Brooks was playing really good defense. The ball honestly kind of came out. And then a foul was called when it easily could have been a travel. It should have been a travel. I think Billis even mentioned that one was a travel, that it should have been a no call at best.
I vaguely remember that one. If that had been the only one, I would have remembered it clearly, but there were so many, I kind of forget about that one. But
yeah,
and that's the thing. And I kind of want to change directions because we could talk too much about this, but the fact that there didn't seem to be ones that went the other way. Like, it's one thing when both teams are kind of like, geez, you missed that one for us. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, it balances out. It didn't feel like it balanced out tonight.
Not at all.
That's the last thing I can really say about that.
No, agreed. It was bad, but you got to move on to the next one and hope that your set of officials in the next game are better, because it couldn't be much worse.
Yeah. So Florida State goes on. They're going to be playing Georgia Tech, who didn't play tonight. So funny that you had that premonition yesterday about Georgia Tech.
Not quite the way that you thought. Yeah.
So there's that. And now Carolina waits for their seeding. Again, I saw after the Carolina game, as I was prepping for this broadcast, some more protocols for the NCAA that things are going to be locked in by Tuesday. Of course, selection show will be Sunday at 6 p.m. generally, I'm assuming. And then, so teams will be locked in by Tuesday as long as they can meet protocol. So a team like UVA, who would obviously make the tournament, they have until Tuesday to prove that they can pass these protocols. So now, all of us at Tar Heel Nation cross our fingers for us that there's absolutely no tests or contact tracing or anything like that that's going to affect our ability to be there.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I believe they still have to test negative for 7 days, right? Like, they're going to be tested every day for 7 days. So, mathematically, if anyone pops for COVID tomorrow, they're in serious jeopardy of being in the tournament. I know the tournament's a little bit weird this year because instead of having like your normal, like your first four, whatever, on Tuesday, and then your Thursday, Friday being your big round of 64 and 32, this year it's Friday is really the big start day. But if tomorrow's Saturday, so you've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if a team popped tomorrow, they would have to be starting on Saturday. Their first game would have to be on Saturday. So, I wanted to see him win this game, but then there's part of me that's like, you know what? I almost think maybe it's better to just get out of Dodge and get where you're going because, if that happens and the season ends like that, that's a painful one. Duke.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I know Duke fans are going to claim forever that they were going to win the tournament. They were going to be in it. But let's face it, Duke's season was over essentially. I mean, a very slim chance they're going to run the table there. But if you're a team that is actually headed for the NCAA tournament and your season ends with COVID, that's a painful and that's a tough pill to swallow.
Do you know, I had heard a couple of days ago that UNC was not going back to Chapel Hill, but they're going straight to, they were just staying in Greensboro as long as they're playing and then going straight up to Indianapolis. Is that, do you know that?
That's what I heard. And I think it's a smart choice. I think that as many plane rides and as many people as you can cut out of your schedule, the better. I would just get there and stay hidden.
And the potential of like going back home and then kind of getting around some people that and so yeah, probably best to avoid that. Even though it's got to be tough on the players to not have that touch point back at home. Yeah.
Well, and imagine how it would be in like, the 80s. I mean, at least now we've got this, we can FaceTime, we can do all these things. But yeah, I mean, it's still tough when you can't be around people and you're isolated so much. I mean, look at their, Garrison Brooks' senior year of college is basically a year of isolation and, just being with his, I hope he loves his teammates because he's been around his teammates and his coaches more than he has anyone else.
He's like, all right, it's been 4 years. I'm ready to say bye to all you guys. So yeah, let's talk about this. Go ahead.
I think now, the only thing that was really on the line winning this game is that I think winning tonight's game moves them up to the 7 line. I don't know, and I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know that a win over Georgia Tech, tomorrow moves them up to the 6. What I'm sort of seeing is that North Carolina is like the top 9 or like the bottom 8 right now. And I say that right now as before tonight's game. So I think that the win over Florida State would have probably moved them up to maybe like the last 7 or the first 8. I don't know that another win, one being over Georgia Tech, would have moved them up to the 6. But I think what tonight would have done was move them off that 8-9 line. So maybe, you lose this game and then you have to play like, Gonzaga or Baylor or Illinois in that first or, in that second game. But, at the same time, you got to get past the first one. They're going to play a pretty good team the first round. It could be like a Connecticut or, somebody like that. So you can't look past that one either.
Yep. Well, I'm definitely hoping for multiple games. One theme that Dan and I have been talking about is this team is yet to win or string together 4 wins in a row. So now if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it in the NCAA tournament. What better place? There's no better place to try and do it. Obviously, we'd all be ecstatic with that. Let's talk a little bit about the fight this team has shown. Yes, there were missed free throws. Yes, there was turnovers. We know that those things are not completely going away, and yet we hope that they make them better as much as possible. But this team really doesn't, back down from anyone, especially even when they're down.
Yeah, I was actually impressed the second half with the grit and the grind and the way that they got out there and, they took a lead and they didn't turn the ball over bad in the second half. I think they had 7 turnovers in the first half and 12 for the game. So, with the type of defense that Florida State was playing and as physical as it was and the fouls that weren't being called, to only have 5 turnovers in that second half was really good. And to be down 11 and, by the time you got to the second TV timeout, it was a brand new ball game. So, I really like their fight. There's been games where they haven't had that this year. There's been games where it kind of looked like they were just mentally gassed. That hasn't been the case lately. Lately, they get
this point of the season,
they really fight back. And they've done it twice against Florida State now. the last game they came back obviously down, like, I think 16 and came back and won. This game they were down 11.5 and they turned it right around and they had a chance. And honestly, if they would have hit some more free throws and played a little bit better offense on the stretch, they would have won this one too.
Yeah, and because this is a game, in the previous few seasons that could have gotten away. I've seen teams that seemed like they gave up, that quit a little bit. And this team, not doing that, not at this point of the season. They're really rising to the occasion and doing what they can. And that's all I want to see as a fan is, the shots might not go in. You might not get the calls, but you're fighting until that final whistle. And even we had a chance. We had a chance to, perhaps get a miracle shot. And I know that Roy Williams wanted them to wait to call the timeout. They wanted to inbound up to half court and then have a better opportunity potentially. It's tough. You don't have much time, so there wasn't a great percentage of that was going to happen. But I think this team can learn from those things and perhaps execute just a little bit better in a tight game situation in the NCAA tournament.
The one thing that I was talking to somebody about tonight, and I don't understand, but when this team goes cold, like the entire team goes cold. And, normally, like, somebody stays hot, like somebody's hitting shots. And I mean, I guess you can say Bacot was 5 for 10 tonight. Like, that's fine. But like, really, he wasn't really on. Obviously some of that has to do with them getting him the ball. But he, even in the first half, he wasn't super aggressive. But it's like when this team offensively goes cold, it's like the entire team. It's like the flu. Like, they just pass it around and, like, no one can hit the net. And then when they're hot, it's like, maybe we should, like, hold back some of these baskets for the next game. Like, let's save some of these. So it's just the most peculiar thing. But I guess that's, it speaks to the fact that they don't have a knockdown shooter. I mean, you can say Walton, but here's the thing about Walton, and we've talked about this, is that Walton's not great at creating his own offense. And unless you get him the ball and, it's a catch and shoot, or he has shown the propensity lately for being able to put it on the court once, maybe get around a screen and pop it, not as accurate. Unless he's able to do that, and if you've got a lockdown defender on him, he's not really much of a threat. So when you don't have a terrific shooter that you can count on, to knock down a bunch of shots every game, I guess this happens.
Yeah, it seems like this team really feeds off of Walton when they offensively have nowhere to go. And if he's not on, aka like a game in Syracuse, then this team is like, it gets a little lost offensively. Thankfully, he did hit a couple big shots tonight to get us back motivated. And then it's like the bigs feed off of that. Caleb Love hit a big one from the wing contested. And the bigs feed off that. And then we go on a little spurt, a little run, maybe get an N1 down low. Unfortunately, that well dried up at the end of this one. But definitely a little bit of an offensive struggle. I don't want to move into thinking about next year, but it's hard for the mind not to go there just a little bit, thinking about some of these players that they do return. Any other thoughts on this game or preparing for the NCAA tournament?
I think that staying healthy is the number one thing. Let's just make it there so that they can play in the game. As of now, even if they lose, nothing else is more important than just making it there and being able to get on the court.
Yeah, let's play the games.
We're going to see more teams this week disqualified, and it's not just going to be from conference tournaments. There's going to be teams disqualified from the NCAA tournament. Undoubtedly, there's no possible chance that 68 teams make it through this tournament. It won't happen. It's going to be, I think, the toughest year ever for the NCAA selection committee. Seeding these teams that have only played 60% of games that other teams have. And, and then watching these teams that, even 3, 4, 5 seeds or whatever. I mean, I hate to even, I shudder to think what teams are going to be. I mean, can you imagine this week if say on Thursday, Gonzaga pop positive COVID test? I mean, it would be horrible. And I'm not a Gonzaga fan, but, I would hate to see a team, especially a team that is as good as, the Gonzagas and the Illinois and the Baylors of the world, Michigan, run in there and not be able to play. As much as I want to see North Carolina have just a run through and not go through a gauntlet, like, I don't want it to be because everybody else got COVID and they just, tiptoed their way to the championship.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that.
I think this week is just going to be. I hope it's quiet. I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah. Yep. Just about everybody who's got a horse in the race is going to be a little bit on pins and needles. And I'm going to keep it balanced in terms of, I think it's going to be a heartbreak for anyone. Yes, of course, the main competitors. But even, for many teams, the first round game is their championship game. And if they get denied that opportunity and maybe it's their senior year, yes, they have the opportunity perhaps to take the free pass and come back. But will they? Who knows? It's going to be a heartbreak. But I agree. Let's cross our fingers that we don't see much of it, but it's likely that we will. So I agree with that take. So we don't know yet where. All the games are based around Indianapolis, is my understanding.
Yeah. Like three, I think there are 3 different sites, but everything's right there pretty much in Indy. So I'm interested to see what the TV schedule is going to be like. I think it's going to be really crammed because normally we're used to seeing, at least 4 different sites and at least 4 different TV channels. And I think the games are going to be right on top of each other, which is another thing that is obviously they have a plan, but I still think it becomes very difficult with COVID and the space between games. And, if one team, like just say one team has a positive COVID test, like I can't imagine.
Contact tracing could extend to so many others.
Yeah. I mean, that could end the tournament right there. I mean, we may wake up on Saturday morning and they say that, 9 teams have COVID, and then all of a sudden your bracket full of 32 teams all of a sudden has, 23. And then you're like,
could be a different year of bracket busting than we've ever seen before.
Can you imagine a team getting to the Final Four with like 3 byes because they were uncontested wins? I mean, that would be terrible.
We saw it in the ACC tournament. Florida State, this is their first game.
Yeah.
After having a bye that they earned and then one that they just were gifted, I guess you want to say. And Georgia Tech goes into the finals. I mean, so we're seeing it in conference tournaments. I know there were some other conferences. Kansas, I believe I saw. So I guess their postseason is in jeopardy as well.
Yeah, as of now, the selection committee would have them in. So them in Virginia, they're both in as of now. But like you said earlier, they're going to have to obviously prove that they can pass the medical protocols to be able to be in the tournament. I hope they are. I'm not a fan of either team, but
but you want to see the best 68 teams that you can see in this event. You know what I mean? If that includes a Duke, I want to see the best teams. You know what I mean? I want to see someone take them out because they need to be there. Whoever the best teams are. I'm not saying Duke this year. I'm just saying in general. That's what I want to see when I'm watching this tournament.
Yeah. When these teams have played obviously some of them have missed games, but they've played all year and they've played through these obviously difficult conditions to get to this point. So they've earned it. And it stinks, like you said earlier, to see a program that's maybe just getting to the NCAA tournament is like their Super Bowl, and like North Carolina A&T. Didn't have a great season. They were like 11-10, but they were 7-1 in the MEAC. So they were the number 1 seed in their tournament and got ousted from COVID. Yep. So it really stinks because that's a team that isn't going to get in now that maybe had a shot at getting in. They had dominated their conference all conference season, and now they don't have a shot.
Yeah, very few teams dominate those conferences and make it year after year after year, which is why we always see different teams. I mean, some teams might have a great core group and they might make it a couple years out of 4, but it's not likely that a team like A&T, like you're saying, makes it every year. I do want to mention one thing that we failed to mention last night, which was Roy Williams passing Bobby Knight. So 903 wins, surpassing Bobby Knight. Third him higher up, third on the all-time.
Yeah, behind Coach K and Jim Boeheim.
And I thought he did a good job.
Boeheim would be much higher, but he lost about 100 wins a few years back, which was very silly in my mind. Like I know this is off track, but I'll never understand like vacating things that happened. Like, these things happened in real life. Like, how do you make them not happen? Or, like taking away Louisville's championship. Like, no, it actually happened. Like, I'm not sure that taking things away that happened in real life is a real way of doing things. But
yeah, taking away in my mind, it like doesn't work because it happened. I agree.
Right.
So, if I'm going to talk about players sometimes and their performances, I'm going to talk about the coach's performance too. I thought for me, this tournament, Roy Williams grades well. particularly last night. I think he got it right. I think obviously Notre Dame, there wasn't too much they could have gotten wrong, I don't think. How do you feel about tonight? Anything that maybe the coach or the coaching staff could have done better?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I love the minute distribution all the time, but I think that's kind of a personnel issue. There are times where I feel like Leaky Black is taking too many minutes. I know he may be considered a plus defender at times, but the lack of offense that he typically provides, and truthfully, he's supposed to be a better ball handler, I feel like, and I don't feel like we always see that either. It's like tonight we're getting full court pressed, and Leaky's got the ball back there, but I don't really feel any more sure with the ball in his hands than I do with like Armando.
We saw our bigs bringing the ball up the court.
But I don't think that's going to change, and I don't think it's going to change next year either. I think he'll still be starting next year. I think part of that is because I don't know how good of a defender Walton projects to be. If Walton was a really good defender, Walton might be starting over him now. As much as Roy Williams favors upperclassmen, if Walton was a really, really solid defender, I think he would have a chance to start at least next year. I just don't know that Walton's going to be that defender. I think he may be.
Well, Walton's starting now.
Say it again.
Walton's starting now.
Well, but I mean, in place of Leaky, and then you change the backcourt up. Gotcha. Instead of having Leaky at the 3, you put Walton at the 3 instead of Walton at the 2, and then maybe
we are seeing a little bit more of that lineup with Davis and Love here again. He kind of went away from that earlier in the season, and he's kind of come back to it. And
I would. They're performing better together now, I think, than they were earlier in the season. And like I said, if Walton could be that better defender, I could see you moving him over to the 3. He's got decent size. He's not a tiny guy. Now he doesn't have Leaky Black size. But if you could get Davis and Love playing well together, and you have those two as your 1 and 2, and then you put Walton over at the 3, and then depending on the personnel you have next year, it may be Baycott and Kessler. But if you've got Sharp, obviously, and then you start Love, Davis, Walton, Baycott and Sharp, or Baycott and Kessler, like I like that a lot better, and I like Leaky coming off the bench, and maybe him having less minutes but more energy and being able to provide like a defensive spark off the bench. Maybe that's better. I don't know. I don't know that we're ever going to find out.
The thing I'll say about Leaky is he's ball aware and he has long arms, so sometimes that pays off. But we see a little bit of offensive defensive substitution from Roy, and maybe he could include that a little bit more. But the coach can't shoot the free throws, so
no. And I don't know how you teach free throws either, but I don't know how you're this bad. Like when you're in the low,
I think they just need to slow down and be a little bit more patient. And one other thing I noticed, now this probably happens all the time, but because there's a lack of fans, I noticed it wasn't the final 2 free throws that Sharp took late in the game. It was another set that I think he missed both of earlier. So yeah, I mean, that tells you things. He went there twice to the line, empty trips, but one of the Florida State players was like, "Is this an and one?" Like right when he was shooting it. I could hear that only because there wasn't fans. And should you be able to tune that out and make it? Yes, I thought it was I think that Florida State player knew what he was doing, but I think for Sharp especially, slow it down and just really focus. And I think there was a little bit of lack of focus, and maybe that was some of the 3 games in 3 days coming into play there. Again, not going to blame the situation on that, but that was a situation that we were on our third game in 3 days, and they were coming in fresh.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that toward the end of the game, it looked like fatigue might be setting in a little bit. But like you said, I don't want to blame it on that, because that honestly, from the beginning of the second half to about the 8-minute mark, I mean, they were absolutely dominating. I mean, they were really, really good. At one point, they were on like a 27-11 run to start the second half, and maybe that was it. Maybe that was all the juice, and maybe that was all they had, and then they just they left everything on the court and had nothing left. But they just looked discombobulated at the end. It was like Florida State turned up that defensive pressure, and then the young guards weren't sure how to handle it. And then that's where you saw all the dribbling, and you saw basically no offensive sets and an inability to get the ball into the post.
Yep. That's what it came down to. And but I think it's a good learning opportunity. So now we move forward, onward to the NCAA tournament, hope for a quiet week on the news front, and everyone enjoy Selection Sunday and seeing where we fall, probably on the 8-9 line. That's all I've got. Thanks for joining, Blake, and hopefully we get to do many more of these to end the season and see the Tar Heels finally string together consecutive wins on consecutive wins.
Yeah, at least a few more. We want a few more games.
Yeah, let's hope. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I don't see any comments, so appreciate Dan letting us do this, and we'll sign off, and we'll hope to see you next time. Until then, go Heels.
Go Heels.
All right, we got to figure out how to end this broadcast. Okay, exit. There we go.